For once, I agree with the frog. That's the same face I make every time Majo Ruka talks. The cold opener once again featured Majo Ruka concocting some evil plans, though for your sake and mine, I won't play any clips here because that laugh still gives me nightmares. The episode proper opened on the two competing Mahodos. I'm guessing the Ojamajo returned to this location to avoid parking tickets. Not that it would really matter when their revenue flow was low thanks to a literal rat downplaying their products. I don't know who's more cutthroat, these two or Jason Voorhees. As a result, Majo Ruka's clerks managed to poach their competition's customers. The mobile Mahodo decided to hold a little business meeting and nice panning shot there, guys. It looks about as natural as half the stuff in my fridge. Anyway, regardless of their tactics, they had to acknowledge that Majo Ruka was able to make much better products, with the biggest difference in her recipes being something that they didn't have much of. So, like, was Rapunzel the real witch all along? Anyway, the Ojamajo understandably roasted the frog after she refused to give up her last strand of hair, and oh geez, did Hazuki suddenly become a titan? No, unfortunately, between this and that earlier panning shot, I could tell this was going to be not a very well animated episode. I honestly thought that this was an Aoyama episode, but nope, apparently that's next week. Of course, one of Majo Ruka's best customers was Reika, as they were pretty much on the same wavelength. Seeing her rival succeed far more than her put Majo Ruka into a very salty mood, though I think just hearing that laugh will do that to anyone. Thus, she decided to call it a day and head back to Doremi's as she refused to stay in the van. I just love how this show promotes the ideals of true friendship. Of course, like most magical neats, she proceeded to sneak some food, including an onpan bun, a really tasty pastry made with red bean jam, and some 4.2% milk? For those who crave slightly fattier milk and yet still want to remain kind of healthy? Okay, I actually looked it up, and apparently Japan does have a little more variety in their milk types, with skim milks being relatively less prominent than here in the States. That said, I don't think anyone would want to drink a milk with numbers that could be read as shini or to die in Japanese. Was it meant to foreshadow this fail? Meanwhile, the Ojamajo were forced to witness the new fad booming in their school, with almost everyone sporting Majo Ruka's charms, and were letting loose as a result of them. This is what happens when you let Netflix and YouTube raise your kids. I say that while I'm on the latter platform. Basically, the charms allowed their wearers to partake in their greatest desires. So Reika was just given all the fancy dresses she could ever want, and the Stooges were somehow viewed as funny. Damn, I gotta give kudos to Majo Ruka. That would take some god tier level magic to pull off. Another kid also got his wish to eat as much fried bread as he wanted, which, yeah, kid, two things. One, you're gonna have some serious health issues later in life, believe me, I know. And two, why would you even want to eat those things? They look disgusting. I would so pay to see Gordon Ramsay's reaction to this junk. Back at the Harukaze residence, Pop had just arrived home to find her onpan and milk having disappeared, with evidence of the latter having been consumed in her sister's room. Doremi managed to convince her not to tell their mother about it, and then rightfully chewed out her new roommate. Remember this phrase for later in your life, Doremi. I'm gonna raise your rent. With that, she wanted to up their shop's business just to evict her amphibian roommate as soon as possible. It wasn't going to be easy, as the popularity of Majo Ruka's charms wasn't dying down, and in fact, everyone was doubling down on their desires. This, of course, led to some nasty consequences, like the bread kid suffering from pre-adolescent heart disease, Reika's dress is literally weighing her down, and the Stooges getting tired from telling so many bad jokes. Okay, it wasn't a total loss at least. But yeah, sure enough, Majo Ruka confirmed that these were all the side effects of Majo Ruka's goods. they not only allowed people to pursue their base desires, but it also gave the wearer an insatiable need for them. Majo Ruka likely wanted her customers to come back for more of her stuff as their greed grew. So, like, are they trying to do a subtle drug PSA here? Because honestly, while it's not bad, they're never going to be able to top Yugi.
I know marijuana is harmful. I know it can't improve my game. My friends and I have faced many battles, and we have always dueled without drugs.
Either that, and more likely, this was probably a commentary on consumerism. After we acquire one thing we wanted, the resulting dopamine chemical in our brains will often push us to wanting more and more until we develop unhealthy and destructive addictions. Majo Ruka and her shop could be viewed as the embodiment of really any evil big corporation, take your pick, that will not only try to actively snuff out smaller, more wholesome businesses, but will also try to push products that create unhealthy dependencies. A very strong and yet subtle message for a show like this. I kind of wish Toei would practice what they preach, but whatever, it's still a good message. Thankfully, science and magic aren't the same thing, so everyone's addictions could be reversed through a counterspell, but it wasn't exactly in the ballpark for 3 rank 7 apprentices. Thus, the Ojamajo asked Majo Ruka if she could help, but she refused, and to be fair, she did bring up a good point that Majo Ruka's customers still chose to go down their destructive paths in the first place. Not that it stopped the Ojamajo from bombarding her with their insults and very off-model faces. Seriously, when did Aiko turn into Kaiba? Regardless, they still decided to give the magical stage a shot, and while I think this was meant to be a dramatic scene, I could only really laugh at the fact that the stage sounded like the last sounds my Windows 95 PC made. Fortunately, since these episodes have acted as a character arc for her, Majo Ruka came in at the last minute to lend a snap, and it even cost her her hair. As a result, everything started to go back to normal. Rika's mom stopped buying her any more garish outfits and likely took away her Netflix account. The Bread kids stopped eating the junk, though white rice isn't exactly a much better alternative. You should probably at least consider brown. And everyone stopped laughing at the trio's jokes. I still kind of wanted to see them suffer from the magical poisoning, but this'll do. With that, the episode ended with our heroines thanking a very tsundere frog witch. Story-wise, this was an excellent follow-up to the events of last week, showing how Majo Ruka and her products can be a legit threat to the Ojamajo and their friends. Sadly, presentation-wise, it was just a tad bit lacking. Another thing I really liked about this episode was, of course, the world building. There was some more overt stuff, like hair being a powerful witch ingredient, but along with that came the more subtle stuff, like the fact that the frog transformation reduced a witch's hair supply down to just 1, showing that it was indeed a punishment. But of course, the biggest draw of this one was seeing the dangers of a witch's charms. We kind of saw it with Majo Ruka's pendant back in the first episode, though at least that was a one-off, as Majo Ruka likely implemented at least some restrictions on it. Unlike Majo Ruka, who purposely made her products addictive just for the sake of financial gain. Again, I love the subtle commentary about obsessive consumerism, with this show acting as a very strong cautionary tale. Granted, it might have been a little stronger if I hadn't been chuckling at how bad the animation got at times. This week's animation director was Hiroyuki Kawano, one of the main animators, so I don't know what went wrong here. Were they trying to save money again? Because usually that's Aoyama's job. There was just a lot of off-model moments in this episode, and even some little errors here and there. It certainly wasn't the worst for this series, and certainly not on par with a recent game, but it could have looked a lot better. Regardless, it was an episode that helped to raise the stakes, and even had some smart, yet somewhat hypocritical writing to boot. In case anyone asks, yes, I have heard about the supposed leaks regarding a certain other series, but, as I've said previously, I will hold off on my comments regarding it until more official channels start talking about it. Instead, I'll be working on my own little pet project, which I am really starting to enjoy writing the script for. There are just so many great series and creators I want to highlight, so I do hope you guys enjoying the final product that will be the Toy Trinity series. Look forward to it, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and... Alright, I won my eBay auction. Alright, now let's see, how am I guys doing again? What? Just because consumerism is a little bad doesn't mean you can't play the game a little.